Who's bad? P bad. That's what I'm gonna say.
That's a terrible short. I mean, it was more than one rehearsal where I was like crying, or like, you know, when you're like improvising and then you just get into your head.
That was something I really enjoyed working on. It was just a departure. It was like the beginnings of Pursued by a Dragon become like starting to form first year. I can see by Yeva's face that this is very true.
It is. It was like a public wondering, like, well, how many scarves do you think he has?
It was.
I will just mention flat. just.
We're just like flat.
I mean, that for us collectively, that is like the most obvious example.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on, and then we won't talk about it for the rest of the session, right, Kenny?
And we are live.
Woo! Exciting.
Well, we are now doing our first podcast as PBAD, or Pursued by a Dragon.
PBAD.
Great way to start.
That's our new name.
Yeah, PBAD forever.
Who's bad? PBAD. That's what I'm gonna say.
That's a terrible short thing.
No, I'm gonna put it on a t-shirt.
So we had this idea of doing like a podcast thing where basically we'll be talking about random topics to do with theatre, and this week we decided to do something to do with therapy and sort of theatre as therapy, and what that generally means to us. I mean, I know when it comes to what I've experienced, I guess, the first time I kind of felt that kind of theatre as therapy feeling, I kind of felt it through Feeling Lonely at Parties, the first iteration.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Because, like, for me, when I first, started, like, getting a little bit more intimate with Brian, that was something I was very, like, conscious of and afraid of doing at first. I'd never been, like, intimate with anyone on stage before. And the show just happened to talk a lot about issues that I faced in the past with an ex of mine. So it was almost like revisiting my kind of like past relationship and looking at it through a different set of eyes. And it gave me a lot of like perspective on that kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
Very quickly.
Didn't realise that. Never knew
yeah,
that.
it was a really cathartic thing, which is why like the first one's always going to have a special place for me, because it gave a lot of like needed emotional closure for certain things and perspective in particular as well. So,
for anyone who doesn't know, who might be watching, Being Lonely at Parties was a show that we made set in a dystopian future where people are forced to wear headphones to regulate their mood, and it was a show with no words but a continuing soundtrack that explored themes of mental health, relationships and loneliness, and how the three intertwine. And we developed it at Middlesex University to begin with, as part of my third year directing piece, and then we expanded that, took it to Pulse Festival, to Camden Fringe Festival, and to the Space Art Centre in London this year. It's interesting that you say that, because that show sort of was born out of a healing process for me, like during the time that I sort of came up with the idea and the concept and started to put it together. I was suffering a lot from like loneliness and stuff, and loneliness in terms of when it comes to relationships, and I just felt really lonely, but for no particular reason. I had like loads of good friends and stuff like that, and so Being Lonely at Parties for me was sort of like a pouring of my heart in a way, and it was as much of a process of healing for me as apparently it was for you. So that's cool. That's interesting. We never spoke about that at the time.
It's weird, like how different the cast's gotten. Just because, like, now that I'm looking at who's in the room, we were all kind of like introduced at different points, save for me and Yusuf. Me and Yusuf were like sort of like the OGs and all that. Whereas Yeva, I think, was introduced next. I can't quite remember. Was it? I think Yeva was introduced before Kelly to Flat.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think it was me and then Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Yeva and Shamika and then then Kelly and Steph did.
Yeah, when I joined, I think because obviously I was just covering someone, and I didn't really have a character. So for me, when I just joined, it was more like, it was more fun than I was like exploring it. But then after I joined, like not temporarily, permanently, let's say that. Then I sort of started exploring these mental health themes and loneliness and relationships, and I think one idea that I really like is that, I mean, we can cope with like mental health issues and ourselves alone, but it also like highlights how we kind of like need someone. We need someone's back, and I think we explored it through physicality very well. How, you know, that support. And yeah, it was based a lot on improvisation. So that was new for me as well, and yeah, that was very interesting for me.
You know what I really enjoyed about the process in particular, and I know one of you will really enjoy this, it was actually exploring how the body would move, and exploring how your body in particular, like as a person individually, likes to move. And you know, that whenever I was in the space and we'd be doing some more sort of like movement-y based tasks where it's just sort of physical improvisation, not necessarily of like, here's a scene, you two act it out physically, more of like just a bit more dancey, I suppose, what the word would be. When I was working with Kelly, I felt like there was like no judgment in the room at all, and that kind of like pushed me a bit more to actually sort of do what I wanted to do. Like, I know in the past, if I've been in like a room where there's an emphasis on physicality and things like that, there's been this kind of like voice in my head saying like, oh, I have to be up to a certain degree or a certain level when it comes to the other people in the room. It's like, oh, they can do this, therefore I need to like push myself to be able to do that. And that can be quite dangerous in the fact that like they might be doing a cartwheel, and because I can't, I could be putting myself in a dangerous position because like, oh, I need to be able to do this. And it also puts yourself in a dangerous position in terms of mind, because it like makes you feel lesser than the other person. You start comparing things, but like whenever I work with Kelly, I completely forgot about that. So
really important. I felt that there is no judgment, especially in a rehearsal room, and especially when you're trying to create something. You don't want to put anyone in a situation where they feel self-conscious, or they I don't know, or they compare themselves to other people, because at the end of the day it's you and your body and what you can create from it. And yeah, that's the reason behind there is no judgment. Or especially maybe the exercises or the things that I would use, I would never put you in, or I could never put you in a situation where I would say like, this is the right way to do it. There's no right way to do it. Yeah, but thank you for saying that, because that's really that made me feel so good.
And also I think it's because the topics we were exploring were very sensitive, and even if you would want to push someone, like what were the limits, you know? Because if you're exploring like loneliness and stuff, I remember it was not only one rehearsal, I mean, it was more than one rehearsal where I was like crying, or like, you know, when you're like improvising and then you just get into your head so much, and then you kind of eliminate the space. You're like just with yourself. There's like other people in the room, but you know, you're using props or something. And yeah, I remember one rehearsal was me and Josh.
Yes,
and I think we were just like touching like fingers, like just like this, and then. And I think Josh was like crying as well. It was like there were no words, but like we kind of knew exactly what we're doing, what we're exploring. And it was just that connection that doesn't need any words. And it was it's like exposing your wounds, but like at the same time you're like healing, and you start to understand some things in the rehearsal room. It's like, it's weird, but it was like such a good experience with these like improvisations and exploring these topics.
Having said that, though, go on, Josh. What are you gonna say?
Sorry. It's carrying on a little bit from what you ever said, though. It is like so strange to me, not in like a bad way, but in just that we didn't have this kind of like sort of instinct, not instinct, what's the word? It's like a starting point for us to actually like go towards that kind of endpoint that we got to. It just sort of happened, and it's so strange to me that like that was the sort of end result, and we didn't need any sort of push to get there. We just sort of like two people just sat there that just understood what the feeling was, and it's really hard to describe, but it's like it's just the idea that this sort of theatrical context brought this out of us and brought this kind of like emotion out of us, where if we just sort of like sat down and had a sort of dramaturgical discussion about what the piece should be like, it would have been a lot more cold, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas this actually brought the feelings out, so we kind of had a better understanding of what needed to be in it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it's good that people had such good experiences in terms of like it being cathartic and like having, you know, a therapeutic experience. However, on the flip side, I do think that it can be quite problematic to sort of have your personal connection to an artistic project so deep, so involved, and even like seeing it as therapy at all as well. Because at the end of the day, you're doing a job, and it's a job that you love, and it's like a really cool job, but you're there to work essentially. And I think that it's important to have a separation between myself and my work self. And you know, moving forward, both with Feeling on Your Parties and with Pursued by a Dragon, I think that we can put in more methods in place to sort of have a bit more of a detachment between what the work we're making and us as humans. Just because it keeps your mental health nice and good, and you're not affected too deeply by the project. Also, it improves the quality of work that you make to an extent, I think, because if you're using theatre as a tool for therapy, like for example making Feeling on Your Parties, there's the risk of creating something that is self-indulgent, or something that is too personal to you, and really I think you should be always thinking about the audience. So that's why, so basically when we did the first Feeling on Your Parties, I was really unhappy, and I was like quite miserable, and that was pouring in to it. Whereas, thank the Lord, I've gotten a lot happier and a lot better mental health wise.
Yeah.
Now, so when we did the space Feeling on Your Parties, it was a lot more plot driven, and I was thinking a lot more about the audience. And although that version was really rough and it had some problems and it didn't get the best reviews, I think we were closer to something really good with that than what we did before. And the reason being because I didn't have a self-indulgent or eye to present my feelings on stage, or like work out something personally. I was just making a show to be viewed by an audience, and I had the audience more in my mind. So I think it's important to recognize the pros of having theatre as therapy, and doing something with a group that doesn't judge you, and you can share your thoughts and feelings with, and you can be open with, to help you get better or help you reach a different place. At the same time, I think it's also important that you keep an eye on that, and you don't let that be your version of acting good, because there's lots of people say, oh, I didn't feel that performance, or I wasn't feeling it. And I think that's a dangerous mindset to get into, the fact that you need to feel something, you need to feel the emotions of the character in order to achieve something good. And I think you can replicate feeling just as well, and it's actually, I think it'll be better for you as a performer in the long run as well. And also as directors as well, it's good to have separation so that you're not going home and thinking about, you know, whatever issue you're exploring.
Were there any other performances? This is like a general question to the rest of you, but like, were there any other performances that you felt sort of similar feelings to? I know like the resounding sort of answer obviously is feeling lonely at parties, because we've all had this sort of amazing experience in one show or another together at some point. But were there any other shows that you were like, oh, I really enjoyed working on this, and it's something that you actively looked forward to? I know one of mine, like, I think for me, mine was a Murmuration of Starlings. That was something I really enjoyed working on. It was just a departure. It was like the beginnings of Pursued by a Dragon become like starting to form, I think. It was something that it was like most of our rehearsals were sort of evening-ish, weren't they? I think. So if this was like another project, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna have to like make tea really late because like I've got a rehearsal to go to. But with Murmuration of Starlings, it was just like the idea that we actually got to work with voice this time was really fun. Because it was a topic that was like something that I kind of literally relate to, because it was about sort of LGBT expression without actually putting the labels on it. It was something that I really enjoyed doing, especially that letter monologue. I think that was like one of the first monologues I've actually done. Because I know.
Do you want to explain what it is?
Oh,
for people who don't know. No, Murmuration Starlings. What it was.
So I get ahead of myself. And was like, by the way, here's all these details.
I feel like I'm like the fact person. Fun fact. What is the information point for the discussion? But yeah, no one's gonna know what it is.
Okay, fair.
Apart from us. Even Kelly is like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I know.
So what was that, Josh?
So, A Murmuration of Starlings is a play written by Toby Moore and Milet, and it focuses upon sort of LGBT issues without actually putting like labels on things. So it's like, oh, we are talking about this because we are a gay couple. It's just more of we're talking about this as a couple, rather than or just like treating relationships as human relationships rather than just a gay relationship or a lesbian relationship or a queer relationship or a trans relationship or anything like that. It humanizes a lot of the sort of dynamics between different sexualities rather than treating them as a minority issue, or it's something that universalizes a lot of what we deal with in terms of relationships.
We did it at the Arcola as part of Act 2's New Writing Festival, and it's a 20-minute piece, and we put it together in 2 weeks.
Crazy, like it was crazy. Our first full run through was in a park with children, and there was swearing and everything.
It was a proper fringe show.
And our tech was really short. How long was it?
20 minutes.
It was.
But we had quite a lot of sound and lighting though.
Yeah.
So it wasn't enough.
But when it came to the play, I was mainly working with Brian again. Like we've just proven we've had stage chemistry in the past, so might as well use it again. And then I had a monologue for myself, which is basically like writing a letter to someone that they like, but they can't seem to like get their point across. And even though they've just spent like 5 minutes talking a lot of shit, they still don't actually say what the point of the letter is. And I relate to this clearly because I'll just talk a load of nonsense for like 5 minutes, and then someone will be like, so what are you actually talking about? And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't actually tell you what I was, a part of or what show I was in that this came from. And the way it was delivered, Yusuf actually told me to deliver it like all in one go, with as little breathtaking as possible. And at first, the line learning was a chore in itself. I remember shouting very loudly in my room every time I got something wrong, because I know I can talk quite quickly, but memorizing things quickly, knowing that I overthink everything, was a real task. So when I actually got it, the first time, I just remember, oh, it's so cheesy, just literally like leaping around the room, proper mad. And then we did it, we got cola, and it felt really nice once everything was over. It felt like it was a similar feeling to feeling lonely at parties for me the first time around. So that was, I think a lot of it, the sort of reverberates sort of like a positive energy to me, is that it was just nice to have that kind of reciprocal feeling between the audience and the sort of cast. I felt like what I did sort of entertained an audience as well as sort of artistically fulfilled myself as well. Naturally, when you do more and more performances, you kind of want to like build on that. So like, oh, I want to do this, and then I'll feel this, and then you want to make it something like you actually feel the more you do, which becomes increasingly difficult because of, you know, diminishing returns. If you do the same thing over and over again, you'll get less out of it, kind of thing. So I guess why it was so impactful to me is the fact that like it was sort of the early days, and it's a nice starting point to reflect on, to see how much and how far we've gotten since. That was long. So, yeah.
Anyone else?
Kelly, do you want to go next?
Well, I had a question actually, just about what you were saying, because obviously, Josh, you and Brian were two people that have done feeling lonely at parties for the longest time. So, so I kind of, I don't know. Do you still feel that feeling that you had the first time you rehearsed it or performed it? Was that still there, say like the last time in January?
It's never going to be the same as, this sounds like so weird, but it's always not going to feel as good as it did the first time. So that's just a given, and it's not anything to do with the abilities of anyone within our company. The first time film was quite special. Like prior to that, I was known as the guy who wore the scarves and was quiet in first year. And I can see by Yeva's face that this is very true.
It is. I'm sorry. It was like a public wondering, like, well, how many scarves do you think he has?
It was. And I've stopped wearing them, which is sad. But anyway.
But yeah, now it's in the past. But yeah.
Yeah.
You burnt them. It's like no more.
After the first run, I'm feeling lonely at parties. He's
I'm
like,
a new man.
I don't need this anymore.
You know what? I'm over it.
I'm just gonna wear headphones now.
That's my thing.
So I guess from there to now, I feel like me, Brian, and Yusuf have probably had like the longest journey with all of this. So I know that the feeling that me, Brian, and Yusuf have is quite like, I don't want to say important, but
we're important, guys.
I mean,
we're the important ones, actually.
I think, like, I know when it comes to, God, how do I say this without sounding ridiculously pretentious? Basically, I know how the feeling of the show should have felt if I were to compare it to the first show, and if I feel like if it's treading a line that's like too far away from it in terms of the emotional value that it has, then I know that it's becoming a little bit of a different show. And I do feel like, for me, that's what happened a little bit with the space. In Camden, I think it was fine. Ipswich was a bit of a different one, just because like it was basically the same story, but with two characters swapped out.
But that's what I'm saying about sort of the detachment to how you feel about something versus how good it is. Because feeling what you felt about the original version or Camden, the space was just better. Was a better show because it explore the themes in a way that was not self-indulgent. For example, in Camden, there's loads of bits where, there's loads of really slow bits, bits where like there's loads of feelings being shown, but not much. In the bits that were probably more special to you than they would be to someone watching it, So that's what I'm saying about like having that detachment. So it's not about how it feels, because how it feels and how it looks or how it is being read are two like completely different things, right?
Yeah.
So for example, if someone is like acting that their sister has just died and they're sitting there and they're feeling all the emotions and they're crying and they're crying, but then have to give a monologue, but they're feeling it so much and they're really crying so much that the audience can't hear what they're saying. And that's pointless. But to them, they might be like, "Oh, I really felt that. I felt the emotion of that," but that doesn't mean that it comes across at all to the audience. And I think that was that's the danger of how we worked with feeling lonely at parties, but in general up until this point, because it was a lot about feeling. That was my fault as well, because I asked you about the feelings and like how you feeling this, and we like tried to replicate feeling. I mean, the show is about feelings, so it's not like a stretch to why that happened. But
I also, I was, because I had this idea and I don't want to forget it. Basically, what I thought just now was, when I think what's even more touching for the audience, maybe the acceptance of like, if you're talking about your experience and you're not really emotional about it anymore, I think it hurts even more to see. When you accept that it hurts and I went through it and now I'm better. I'm not like good, but I'm better. And I think for me that's more touching than someone would like go on stage and start crying and stuff. Although I did feel like that sometimes when you just have when you put your experience in the performance and then you're like that's part of a performance and you have to go through it every performance. But also after like fifth performance maybe, or not fifth, I think, how many times did we perform at Space? Like 4, 5? 6. Yeah, after I think the fourth one, I was like, you know what, I think I'm empty. And then I thought, oh my god, I can't deliver anymore because I think my emotions are gone. Like I'm over it. I don't feel sad about the things anymore. But then I was always checking with you, like how was tonight, and it was it's getting better every night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm getting emptier every night, but I don't know how the performance is getting better.
Never, because this happened a lot during our Run a Few Lonely Parties. People saying, I didn't feel that performance, or I didn't. Never did someone saying that or someone feeling that alter the performance in any way. Like the things that alter the performance were like timing issues or energy levels or things like that. Never was it a feeling.
No. Did Kelly want to talk about the show?
As in
or anything or anything, anytime that you felt your experiences of
performance
as therapy.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like Pursued by Dragon related either. It can be
man.
Almost even
forget about that.
First time. I will just mention Flap. just
we're just like Flap.
I think that for us collectively, that is like the most obvious example.
Yeah.
Okay. Go on, and then we won't talk about it for the rest of the session, right, Kelly? I'm joking.
What'd you say?
You can go on, and then we won't talk about it for the rest of the session.
Okay. Yeah. I'll bring the Flap, and then we'll move on.
Bring the flap it shut.
Yeah. I think being on, because obviously Evan and Josh, you guys were the performers, and then obviously Yusuf, you created it. For me, coming in like a year ago and essentially being on the outside of it, and then when watching, like we go through rehearsals and everything, and then by the time I'd then watched the performances, I never felt like, I always felt like you guys gave more each performance, if that makes sense. Yeah, it never felt like your emotion was low or it was low. It felt like it grew and grew and grew. So but
this is what I mean about what is read and what you feel are different. Because you're saying that it looked like the emotion grew and grew and grew, but it didn't though. That's because some people were like, "Oh, I didn't feel that emotional tonight," or "I didn't feel as emotional as yesterday." But it doesn't matter because what the audience read is different from what you're feeling, right? Because the actions that you performed were the same, and the movements that you created were the same, and even if you weren't feeling it, you tried to replicate it. You tried to like show it. You weren't like, oh, I'm not feeling it today, so I'm going to go in the scene really happy all of a sudden because I'm not feeling sad. No, you were like, oh crap, I'm not feeling the emotion, but I'm going to try and pretend, and that pretense read this exactly the same as when you felt it. But yeah, that's a good observation, Kenny, in terms of like, yeah, it doesn't matter about.
There was one run of the space version of Flap where I just remember catching, like, just in my peripheral seeing Yeva, and I just remember seeing her face, and she looked absolutely distraught, but it was like right at the end of the piece. She looked absolutely distraught, and for some reason that almost just on the spot made me cry, and I don't know why.
Wow.
But it's
I think my foot was bleeding. I think I was sitting on the floor. I was like, oh,
oh god, that floor was not great for our health, but
no, it wasn't. But yeah, things happen for a reason. It made you cry and cute.
It was one of the later shows as well, which is like you were saying before that you felt like less and less. But naturally, I read whatever was on your face. That sounds good. And I just took it like, wow, this is really hard to watch. I don't know, but it was just like you look absolutely exhausted that you just gave everything into it, and I was like, I believe that you did through the expression on your face.
Okay,
so,
I don't want to speak about feeling on your place now. Just scrap it, forget it. We're talking about it enough. I'm gonna talk about something else, and the thing I want to talk about is a few years ago, at the end of my first year of uni, I broke up with my first girlfriend, my first relationship, right? And I was like miserable, and it was the same time, during the same time period that we had to do a really bad module at university, which was a storytelling module. It was really boring. We had to do an adaptation of The Bloody Chamber, and it was devising, but taught really badly, and we had to do lots of crazy movement stuff as part of the module, and I'm not into movement as in like doing it. I'm not that physical. So I was like hating life, and I was miserable. But in those 2 weeks, after I broke up with my girlfriend, I wrote a play. I banged out a play in 2 weeks, the first draft of a play. And it was a really good play, but it was about themes of, young people and pressures on them in society, and like dealing with like hardship and stuff, but still having to, complete a task, complete a job. And so then since then I like developed that play, and now it's a play called Trying, in which I was going to be my end of year Mountview show, but unfortunately that got postponed / cancelled. But I'm going to definitely stage that when this is all over, as soon as I can, with Pursued by a Dragon. But that was a clear example of I literally used writing that play as therapy. And like some people some people go out drinking, some people sit and listen to sad music, but I pour my energy into writing a play, and I wrote it in a really good first draft of the whole play in 2 weeks, and it was like the first time I'd ever done that. But that was a good way. I personally find that I'm the most productive usually when I'm sad. So I make the I make the best work when I'm sad. But I'm now learning how to make good work when I'm happy, which is good. And I've got into a position now where I can make good work when I'm happy. But in university, I literally, if I wasn't miserable, I'm like, got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought. Sorry, I interrupted you, John.
I just saw like Yema trying to tactically shift her laptop as a flatline gaming. It's just like.
Oh, it was my cousin.
You know what? Yeah, we're living in like really grim times where we have to go on Zoom.
Yeah.
You know, people understand. And if they
Yeah.
don't, you shoot them in the face. I'm joking. You won't shoot anyone.
Yeah, but basically what what you said about being productive when you're sad, I think it's because like you just really need to like put it on the paper. Like, you know, because like I've heard people saying about poetry is like, you know how, like if you never had your heart broken, how are you going to write poetry? Like, what are you going to write about, really? Like, it's that kind of thing, you know? It's, yeah, and then, so they say like, you know, like poetry is born like from a broken heart, and like every little piece of that broken heart, like it like produces a poem and stuff like that. So I think that's like, you know, there's some kind of beauty in that thing where you like, you know, when something was created because you were in pain, and then, you know, because we don't talk about things sometimes, because like when it came to like my experiences, why I was bringing my experience to rehearsals was because I just thought that everyone's tired of me talking about the same thing again and again and again, and I was just keeping it reserved for like a creative material instead. I thought, you know, everyone's tired of me talking about the same thing, so I might just like use that experience to create something, and then don't need to even talk about it. Like, it's just, you know, you see it and you can relate to it. So yeah,
and to add on to that, like making work about sort of your issues or how you're feeling is the best way to sort of, but as a director I find it really, and a writer, sometimes writer, I find it interesting because you can present like difficult subjects, things that are bothering you, but you still have that level of detachment to it. So that if someone was like, "Oh, is this about you?" You can be like, "No, I'm just directing. I just wrote a play about this, or I just directed a play." Like, you have that separation of like the characters are different enough, the world is different enough that, you know, you can shut that out there, but without having to, you know, talk about it on a personal level, or without having to like really like come to do anything about it. You can just present it and then change the characters' names, change a bit about it, and then it's whole different thing. Yeah, it's like a really, really long indirect on Twitter.
Yeah.
But in the best,
I agree.
But in the best way though, because it's like then when people engage with that material, it's like they're indirectly engaging with you, but they don't. But they might not know to what extent, and it's just interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to see the like some situations from another perspective. Because if you're into it, like you're so emotional, and then, you know, you make promises when you're happy, you make decisions when you're sad, it's like all messed up. And then if you put it on paper, like you kind of see, you start seeing it like strategy, you know, like that was a stupid thing to do, shouldn't do that again. And like, you know, like these little things, I think it's a good like a self revision kind of.
Yeah, and both trying and feeling about is have a message at the end, which was like a message to me when I like the positive part of me giving me like some sort of optimistic motivation or some sort of message while I was in those difficult situations. It was weird. So because they both have, like, I'm not gonna, without spoiling too much, they both have positive endings and positive messages. And that was like messages from myself to myself. But on the additional side to that, that can hopefully help other people suffering from similar things or going through similar things. And hopefully other people can find catharsis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have some lovely feedback after the space run.
Yeah.
I remember.
Like the space run was really, really, really good, and I want to develop that version. The only issues were that we did it in a week. We put on a whole show together, a whole devised movement show in a week, and we were all tired, and we all had like 100 other things going on, and it was January. January, oh, that's the worst month to do it. When we first did it, it was in the summer, like Camden Fringe Festival. It was great. We would leave, it would still be light, we'd all go to the pub, it was great. Here, we'd finish and it'd be like dark, it'd be raining, it would be cold. It was this miserable thing. And I think those were the factors that made it less so. But in terms of the quality of the work we made, I think it was really good.
I do have one more play, I guess, that was quite cathartic for me. I know it wouldn't have been for everyone, but in second year, our core module was Untitled the Possibilities, and
by Howard Barker.
Yes, that dude.
What a lad. I don't really like
him. He has some interesting things to say on his book. I can't remember what it's called. It's like something to do with theatre.
How to be a twat.
Yeah, basically. So in second year, we all had the same play, and I was in the same group as Yeva, actually. And basically, we did this spooky, really kind of edgy, dark version of the play. Whereas the other two they had like two different versions. One was a bit more kind of odd and upbeat. Another one was a bit more like analytical, I guess would be the word for it. So for me, what was really nice was the lighting designing process of it. Not necessarily like the acting for me was like, it's cool. And I kind of got bored of my role, like my main role, quite early on because I learned the line quite quickly and we over-rehearsed that particular scene's death. So since it was quite a long process in second year, the assessment comes quite late in the year comparatively to when you start the module. So I was a lighting designer, and I remember like there was 10 scenes and we were supposed to like narrow it down to like 3, 4, 5, and I at the time didn't know what scenes we were doing, and I wanted to get some research out there. So I chose 2 artists, applied them to a scene, and I looked for sort of artistic inspiration to do with that scene to get like sort of lighting design concepts for each scene. So by the end of it, I had this huge mood board that we put up in Studio 5, and it covered like the whole. I remember it covered like the wall in the corner, and it was like a small little gallery of research for everyone to look at. And for me, it just kept giving me ideas. And since then, it's kept giving me ideas because I researched like 20-something artists, so I can refer back to it, that kind of thing. And for me, it was just like a nice process to get to know my craft a bit better. Sometimes when we're learning something new, like if you're going into costume or sound or directing or something you haven't done before, you're kind of thrown in a lot of the time, I think. So actually being able to sort of find a bit of a process for you to undergo in order for you to do it at a more tight schedule the next time was really beneficial for me, because now I feel like I can fart out lighting designs left, right, and center, and it'd be fine. Generally speaking, I'm not going to like, wow, this is amazing, well done me. I know I obviously need time to prepare and all that, but I know it's maybe a lot less stressed out when it comes to making a lighting design for certain shows. And in the possibilities, I really enjoyed my sort of attention to color. I loved Yeva's scene in particular, where it had this like really slow fade from like a daytime to sort of like sunset, and the pictures we got from it were really sexy, so that was cool as well. And we had this scene next where it was like at night time, so I just went all out and just put a really deep blue, and we had like torches as well. Who was that?
That's not from mine, I think.
Okay. So we had like these torches, and we'd be looking at the audience and things like that, because we did it in a round. and the audience was sat around, and then I actually like shine like not directly in their eyes, but I shine like torches at some of the audience members and things like that.
Yeah, but it was such a good set actually, and like set design as well, because one of our teachers just like he emailed me I think last week, and he asked for pictures from the possibilities. Now, like a year and a half later. So he was like, "Oh, I love it so much." It was like such a good set, you know. It was like, whoa. But yeah, I thought that it would be. Yeah, it was just. I think he just emailed me because I think he assumed that I have all the pictures. But yeah, I thought it would be. As we were talking about like theorist therapy, we know more like a verbal thing. We're like more of the like a verbal thing going on. But I thought that Kelly maybe could, because we never really talked about like how does Kelly perceive that physical theater as a more physical theater as a therapy. So I thought that not just for the podcast, but like I'm generally interested in how you say it, because you know you were always so happy and like so bubbly in space that I never thought that, you know, you would like, oh, this is sad, or like something like that. So yeah.
No, you should have seen it behind your back. Behind your back, she was like, "This is fucking shit."
Oh, you're a bit
nice, Kelly. Interesting.
I can't hear you.
I didn't hear anything you said, Kelly. Sorry.
Oh, I'm very sorry. Anyway, I'll just.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Just start again.
No, I think if someone else is talking, Kelly's mic just doesn't pick up her.
Oh, right, okay.
So I think we need to just.
Okay. So it's funny that you mentioned that, actually, because so I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but there is a thing called dance movement psychotherapy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone. And it's something that I have experienced. So for me, obviously you guys know that I never really came from a theatre background. I came from a dance background, and during my training we actually did I would say like a different form of movement therapy. It was a lot of movement training and a lot of somatic practices. Basically you work with your own body. It's pretty much the same as when I'm doing rehearsal with you guys, and I would do an exercise or something that gets the way that your bodies move, rather than telling you to do something, or me doing something on my body that wouldn't fit yours. So I do have experience of that, and it's actually something during lockdown that I've been considering for after, like when I can leave the house. And it's interesting. I remember during my training, because I felt like it was something that was part of the training, and it was something that I was being made to do. I didn't enjoy it. Whereas when I when I finished and came out of that experience, I then looked back and realised I actually enjoyed it. I just didn't realise it. And it's definitely, I think, it is a way of getting out of your head and into your body. And that's obviously, you guys know, like recently I've been posting a lot about my yoga videos.
Yeah, we've seen.
These are so cool though.
And again, I feel that is a form of therapy for me, because again, it's getting out of like the anxiety, the stress of especially what's happening at the moment, and putting my energy into something else. So so for me, I always felt like with movement and dance, it was a way to escape what was happening, like on the outside, what was happening in like my head, whether it was stress or sadness, anger, you know, like other like dancers or movers could probably agree with that as well. I don't know if you guys could agree with that, with like the
Yeah, I can agree with that, because as a director, I often have to stand up and then sit down, and I use that as a photophobia. I'm joking. Carry on, Josh. Did you ever?
Are there any like logistics? Do you know how this, like if you raise your hand this way, it means that, like I know in contemporary dance especially, they have like a lot of, it's like theory about like if you want to express this emotion, you should move that way, and like did you learn these kind of things as well?
I mean, not really. Okay, this is where the no judgment and no right or wrong comes in with me, because that was the way that I was always taught. So yeah, no, not really.
That's interesting though, because I thought that maybe there are some like rules, but because of course everyone moves differently. I'm just thinking whether when you're learning dance and stuff, are you kind of being like shaped, as in like, oh, this is how contemporary looks, this is how this kind of dance looks, or did they just like, here's your topic and then just like dance to it, I guess?
So I'd say it varies. So with something like contemporary, that it's actually very popular. It's used in every dance program, every conservatoire program. So it's a very popular style. It depends on the technique, I think, because you could be doing like a commercialized contemporary technique or style, where that may happen. Whereas with me, it was a lot of, we would do contemporary technique, but it was like twice a week or something like that. And then the other times we would do contact improv, and then, like I said, the form like movement therapy, movement training. So I don't know if you've ever heard, but of like Skinner release technique, or Feldenkrais.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that I think actually used a lot for actors. But anyway, yeah, so that that was my experience. But like I said, I do know that with other contemporary techniques or styles, that that can, you're kind of broken down as a dancer. So for me, so when you get accepted, say like into like uni or do a dance program or even a conservatoire, they rip apart whatever you have learned before, and I guess not mold you, but offer you their training and their techniques and their style to then make you the dancer that you end up becoming, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know, so for me, so I was like 19, I felt like it was always the case that I would try and push myself. Josh, I think you kind of mentioned this earlier, but like I would try and compare myself to other people.
Yeah.
And so past certain like restrictions or boundaries or even injuries of like my body. And it wasn't until probably like the past, I don't know, year, 2 years, something like that, that I was like, no, like you can't do this to yourself. It isn't about anyone else, and you cannot compare your body or your, I guess, like your dancing body or performing body to another person, because that's the thing that actually I find really messes with your like confidence and your emotions, and also I felt like you become like a lot, you get angry with yourself, and that isn't the case at all. So yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. No, because
that long thing all I hear is I'm just going, okay.
No, I'm just processing everything, because what Kelly said, especially at the end, how oh no, but he's stuck at such a beautiful pose.
I mean, we're coming up to the hour anyway, so if you want to like start wrapping up,
Yeah.
that'll be great as well.
Yeah, I think that acceptance of yourself, and that, you know, not putting pressure on yourself, it also gives you it makes it easier for you to like perform better, I think, because if you know the last thing you need to be anxious about is yourself, like, you know, just do your best. But yeah, like Kelly said, was like really made sense.
Just to touch on your comment about like we're anxious about everything now. I think we were always anxious about everything, but it's only just we've become more aware of it. So like, I think I have like very mild anxiety, but I didn't just wake up with it. I think I've always had it, but I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the same with mental health in general. I think it didn't just appear with our generation. It's always been there, but
yeah.
But I think there's more awareness. Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we wrap it up there then?
Yes. Kelly, bring us home with an inspirational summary of everything. Go on.
Put her on the spot like
that. That's it. Basically, theatre's good. Hopefully we can get back to theatre. It's good. It's nice when it's used as therapy, but we got to be careful that we don't blend it too much in our personal lives, and we have that attachment so we continue to make good work. And also, everyone's body is different, so don't compare yourself to others. And everyone's brain is different, so don't compare yourself to others. Everyone's different. So
and hopefully people still want to see live theater, because now, you know, everyone's uploading their works online and stuff. So
no, I think live theater won't die. Like, it's been through so much.
Yeah, it has.
It went through the plague. Okay, if it can go through the plague, then I think the coronavirus won't kill off theatre.
And what a lovely note to end on. So basically, this will be something that we'll be doing weekly for as long as we wish to, I suppose.
Till we're dead.
Talking about till we're dead. Yeah, Yusuf. We're going to do it till dead. We're going to be doing this weekly, and we'll be discussing all sorts of topics. So tune in for the next time. See y'all later.